Hey everyone, welcome to This Prepared Life. I'm Allison, and today I wanted to talk about some of the items I keep in my prepper pantry for baking. So my prepper pantry has 3 layers in it. I have my kitchen layer, my short-term layer, and my long-term layer. And today I'm just going to be talking about some of the items I prep for baking that are in my long-term layer. And I define long-term as anything over that 2 to 3 year mark. And so these are items that if they are packaged properly and stored properly, they can last for an extended amount of time. They do not have high oil or fat contents. They do not have a moisture content over 10%, items like that. So let's go through some of these items that I keep and store in my prepper pantry for baking. So item number 1 is sugar. Sugar will actually store indefinitely if it is airtight and kept dry. So I use Mylar bags. I sometimes will package sugar in 5-gallon Mylar bags and 5-gallon buckets, but I will often also package it into these smaller Mylar bags. I use Mylar a lot in my long-term storage, and it is actually, I don't think I have anything in my long-term storage that is not in Mylar. So Mylar protects against oxygen. If you are using it with an oxygen absorber, it also removes the oxygen from the bag. Mylar protects against moisture. Mylar is just a really great tool. So that's item number 1, sugar. I keep a lot of sugar in my prepper pantry. Item number 2, baking soda. I also keep baking powder on rotation. These baking soda will last for a very long time if you store it properly. And I keep this on hand not only for baking, but also for cleaning. So again, you want it to be away from moisture. Store it in a cool and dark place if you have that. Mylar bags are great for this because they keep the light out, and you do not use an oxygen absorber with baking soda. So a third item that I prep in my long-term baking preps is cocoa powder. And I buy this in bulk, usually from Azure Standard. I will sometimes grab it at Costco or a restaurant supply store. If we happen to be at one, they often have big bags of cocoa powder. Cocoa powder is an absolute mess to package into Mylar. It is so fine, it just gets everywhere. But great prep item. So I keep cocoa powder in smaller Mylar bags because I am not going to go through like a 5-gallon bag in a bucket of cocoa powder in a short amount of time. So small bags, base the size of Mylar bag you use based on how fast you're going to go through that item. So a fourth item that I keep in my long-term prepper pantry for baking is eggs. And I have a freeze dryer. I have a Harvest Stripe medium. So I do my own raw egg. And this is great because we also have our own chickens. So in the springtime, when eggs are in an abundance, I am freeze drying eggs. And freeze drying raw eggs, there's very little difference. These are great to use just to make scrambled eggs, but also in baking and cooking. And so I will typically, you can see this bag has 24 raw eggs in it. And so I will typically bag these in either a 12 egg or a 24 egg bag. And when you reconstitute freeze-dried eggs, it's a 1-to-1. Some people say 1-to-2 ratio, but I have found 1-to-1 works really well. So that means 1 part egg to 1 part water. So eggs are great to have on hand. These will store a considerably long time. Again, if you package them properly and store them properly. Raw egg is item number 4. So some of the next items that I keep on hand for baking in my long-term prepper pantry is freeze-dried fruit. Freeze-dried fruit is a delicious snack as is. My kids absolutely love snacking on freeze-dried strawberries, freeze-dried apples, freeze-dried watermelon, and freeze-dried pineapple taste just like candy. So having those on hand, they do get rotated through. We take them hiking, we take them on road trips. Sometimes we just eat them because it's delicious. But for baking, a lot of the freeze-dried fruits are going to bake into things and you aren't even going to notice that it was freeze-dried. Oftentimes with some freeze-dried fruits, if you're rehydrating it, it has lost some of that texture. Like rehydrating peaches, they tend to be a little bit mushy. But if I'm going to be making a peach crisp or a peach pie, with these freeze-dried peaches, they're going to get soft anyway in the baking process. So I have reconstituted some fruits for baking and they work absolutely amazing. So this happens to be freeze-dried peaches. This happens to be freeze-dried apple with cinnamon. So some of the fruits I keep on hand, freeze-dried apples and peaches. I have freeze-dried berries of all kinds. Freeze-dried kiwi. I haven't tried baking with that yet, but it is absolutely like a really tangy snack. So freeze-dried fruit is a great thing to have in your long-term prepper pantry for baking, but also just for snacking and being able to add that variety into the foods that you might be able to feed your family in a longer term emergency situation. These are some of the items that I prep for baking in my prepper pantry. If you have questions about Mylar, please go to my website. I have a Mylar for food storage course that will take you from I know nothing about Mylar to I can Mylar food with confidence. So check out my Mylar course. Please comment below if you have any questions. I love hearing from you guys. Hit that subscribe button if you'd like more homestead prepper content. Thanks for being here.